Time now for Fantasy Football Today for CBS Local Sports. We're going to give you some options you can choose in a big fantasy week. Remember, fantasy playoffs start in week 14 for the majority of leagues, so you might need this win to get in. Let's start at the quarterback position. We're going with Sam Darnold. Start of the week here on CBS Sports. I think it's going to be a big week for Darnold. Coming off 3 very strong performances, at least 23 fantasy points each of his last 3 games, at least 30 fantasy points in his last 2 against Washington and Oakland. I think he keeps it up one more time against the Bengals defense that, well, pretty much stinks. So Darnold has a great opportunity here to stay hot for your fantasy roster. Dave, what's the quarterback we're sitting this week?
We're just going to sit a Hall of Fame caliber quarterback, the guy that's won 6 championships, Tom Brady. Don't see him as a top 12 guy. Maybe he'll be okay. He's got a good track record against the Texans. But 4 of his last 5 games, Jamey, he's been under 20 fantasy points. Not sure how the Patriots are going to beat the Texans, but I know they're going to do it. And I think it'll be with defense more so than offense. Tom Brady might have 200 yards and 1 touchdown.
Yep, not a great quarterback on the road so far this year. Maybe that does change based on the matchup. What about the running back position? Who we starting?
I feel like Ronald Jones is set to break out. He's going to see his touches rise, especially against a bad defense, which is what the Jacksonville Jaguars have. This is just their past 3 games. 5 touchdowns allowed on the ground and 7.4 yards per carry. I'm not making it up. It's not a joke. Ronald Jones nearly had a 97-yard touchdown run last week. It was called back by a penalty. This week, I think he gets it. A must-start fantasy running back.
Love the setup for him. One of my favorite plays this week, regardless of position. You should start him over Tevin Coleman, who's just not getting the job done of late. He did score a touchdown against the Packers in Week 12, but it was a very easy touchdown. 40 yards rushing or less in each of his last 4 games, and we just saw the Ravens shut down Todd Gurley. With Matt Breida potentially coming back, but even if he doesn't have Breida back to share touches with, you still have Raheem Mostert there. You still have Jeff Wilson there. Not going to give Tevin Coleman the touches he needs to be successful. He's someone you should avoid. Who you should start at the wide receiver spot. Let's stick with the theme of trusting the Jets. Jamison Crowder, touchdown in 3 of his last 4 games. I think he keeps it going this week in a good matchup against the Bengals. We've seen the Bengals allow 11 or more PPR points to 8 wide receivers in the last 5 games, and I think Crowder keeps it up as the go-to guy in this offense for Sam Darnold. So trust Darnold, trust Crowder, trust Ryan Griffin, trust the Jets against the Bengals. And even though this team is successful, Dave, you don't want to go with their number 1 wide receiver.
You know, I get it. It's intoxicating to go after Marquise Brown and the 2 touchdowns that he had last week against the Rams, but he's going to see the 49ers and their top-ranked pass defense. He might do better running the football in this game than he will passing. They've only allowed 18 pass plays of 20-plus yards, the 49ers have, and only 4 of 40-plus yards. They are good against the pass. It took me a while to come around on them, and Brown is just so inconsistent. 1 week, huge game, lots of touchdowns. The next week, 2 or 3 catches, 20 or 30 yards. I don't want to trust Marquise Brown if I can help it.
I get it. Hopefully he gets the 7 targets like we saw last week against the Rams, but it just hasn't been consistent for Marquise Brown, an easy wide receiver to sit if you can. All right, to recap, here's what we got. The starts, Sam Darnold, Ronald Jones, Jamison Crowder. The sits, Tom Brady, Tevin Coleman, Marquise Brown. Hopefully these suggestions work for you. Hopefully you're successful in Week 13. For Dave Richard, I'm Jamey Eisenberg. Thank you for watching Fantasy Football Today for CBS Local Sports.